Hey everyone, my name is Joe Bartle, and I'm talking about the three players I love and hate entering Week 9. 10 for 143. That was Calvin Ridley's line against the Lions last week. It's a pretty eye-popping total, given that he had just 12 receptions for 183 yards the entire 6 weeks prior. And I don't know if it's just an overreaction or maybe just a statement for the Titans offense with DeAndre Hopkins now gone. But whatever the case, I'm not overreacting to it this week. And if you're trying to chase the Calvin Ridley numbers from last week, just be careful. The Patriots secondary is actually really good. And besides the record being bad, and obviously Drake May might not play, I anticipate the points scored between the Titans and Patriots is going to be very pathetic. Pathetic for a Week 18 game, much less a Week 9 game. And I would imagine Calvin Ridley will be a focal point of the Patriots defense too. All that production that occurred against the Lions last week was when the game was effectively out of reach, and it was out of reach by the first snap of the Lions in that contest. Yes, Calvin Ridley is a really good receiver, and yes, it's good to have good receivers be the focal point of an offense, but not when it's Will Levis, Mason Rudolph, and this dumb coaching staff, the Titans, operating things consistently. I would not be chasing Calvin Ridley's production, and he's on the outside of my top 30 receivers this week. Along the same lines, Dionte Johnson joins my hate list for the week. And we've spent a lot of pub over the RotoWire YouTube station talking about the Dionte Johnson trade to the Ravens. Other than Amari Cooper scoring a touchdown in the second half of his debut for the Bills, the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, the Devontae Adams of the world, those traded receivers over the past couple weeks have not done a whole lot in their debut. And I think the Dionte Johnson trade helps the Ravens, especially in the postseason, and will make the offense better. But making the offense better does not mean Dionte Johnson becomes a fantasy asset. We've pioneered on this show Patrick Surtain and the Patrick Surtain Club. We've pioneered on this show the Patrick Surtain Club for the Broncos. And while I would imagine the stud corner isn't necessarily moving around the field with Dionte Johnson, he probably stays more to Zay Flowers in that regard. It's still a really good secondary for the Broncos. And if I'm Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, it's going to be Derrick Henry, it's Lamar Jackson reads. I'm playing it safe and waiting for my defense to make a play on the rookie Bo Nix. I think that Dionte Johnson is one of those fantasy assets that I'll be trying to trade right now off a name brand value, and that maybe there's upside to whoever's acquiring him, that he went to a different team. But this is not the guy getting 12-plus targets for the Carolina Panthers anymore. It's a third receiver, third target on a team that can pass, is really good at passing sometimes, but also has the best running back in football in Derrick Henry, able to help them win games too. Dionte Johnson is not just a fade or a hate for me this week, or somebody I want nothing to do with for the rest of the season. Finally, the last player on my hate list, and this one pains me to say, is Tucker Kraft. Now, of course, I'm a Packer fan, so that's part of it, but I'm assuming Jordan Love won't play. We made this mistake last week with Terry McLaurin because I assumed Jaden Daniels would not play. I'm recording this on a Thursday. I was wrong on Terry McLaurin on his stats because Jaden Daniels did play. And if you saw Jaden Daniels playing, you knew you were going to play Terry McLaurin. So I guess if we know Jordan Love will play for the Packers this week, it's been reported by Schefter or Rappaport or somebody like that come Saturday, then toss this out. But right now, I think it's Malik Willis as your starting quarterback for the Packers in this pivotal matchup against the Lions. Now, if you recall, Malik Willis was really good against AFC South teams, whether it be the Titans, the Colts, and of course, Jacksonville in the second half of the win last week for the Packers. Malik Willis can run an offense, and in a one-game sample, I think the Packers and Matt LaFleur can beat a lot of teams. The AFC South, much different than the juggernaut Lions, who are playing some of the best football right now in the entire world, and I'm a little bit more concerned as a Packer fan than I would have been in the past couple weeks. But when Malik Willis was the starting quarterback for the Packers earlier this season against the Colts and Titans, he had just 5 receptions for a little under 40 yards. Tucker Kraft wasn't Tucker Kraft, the fantasy asset, just yet at that point, but it stands that the Packers need to run block more, need to make sure they have as many bodies as they can to help out Josh Jacobs and to set up the play action. If we know that Jordan Love is out, Tucker Kraft is probably a benched tight end for me outside the top 12 options there, and I think that's a fair assessment given where the Packers' passing offense could be this week. Again, if you are liking this video, awesome. We'd love a like and subscribe for the RotoWire YouTube channel overall. We have a ton of great content on the site right now. All right, for my 3 loves this week, I think we have to start out with Derek Carr, who we expect will be back. It's not officially announced, but the idea has been all week long. Derek Carr will return from his 3-game absence due to the oblique injury. And if you're Derek Carr, why wouldn't you want to return this week against the AAA Carolina Panthers? I say that a little bit in jest, but I would not be surprised at all if there were some of the best college teams right now with the way NIL is set up that could easily beat the Carolina Panthers. It's not their fault necessarily. Derek Brown, the best defensive player on their team, has been on injured reserve now for the past month, but they didn't have a whole lot of talent to begin with. Trade away Dionte Johnson. We saw the Saints thrash the Panthers in week 1. It made us completely re-understand what the Saints were entering this year. Well, they're bad, which means the Panthers are worse. And I think Derek Carr is a fantasy starting quarterback in the sleep. And I think Derek Carr is in the range, especially in Superflex, of a starting quarterback. I would play him over Aaron Rodgers. I would play him over Trevor Lawrence. I'd play him over Justin Herbert. Maybe even CJ Stroud. I'd play Derek Carr over, again, 3 touchdowns, 200 yards in the slobber knocker of a week 1 win over the Panthers. Derek Carr and, to a lesser extent, Chris Olave, too, who's, I think, like wide receiver 5 this week. Both need to be automatic plays if you are at all considering things. DeAndre Swift joins my love list this week, and he's got 4 touchdowns over the past 4 weeks, which is great. But more importantly, in my mind, he's averaging over 21 touches per game between carries and receptions during that stretch. The Bears are using him better. No shocker. You want to use that speed guy who can do a lot outside the tackles to run outside, to do more screen passes. Happy that Shane Waldron's figured things out with his highly paid running back. And more importantly, Swift is getting all that work over Roschon Johnson, who is effectively a touchdown merchant outside the time when you use a backup offensive lineman to try to score from the 1. Thanks, Bears. Keep doing you. I think DeAndre Swift is certainly a fantasy relevant guy, but also is like running back 6 or 7 range. You might have drafted Swift in round 7 or round 8, and at this point, you're probably playing him, but I'm just reinforcing to everyone, this is a running back 1 and probably running back 1 rest of season. Cardinals allow the 3rd most points to fantasy running backs, and I also believe we're going to see a lot of offense from both sides. So, I mean, Swift is going to be out there plenty, and hopefully not make time for Roschon Johnson or backup offensive lineman to get carries at the goal. And you never know. It is the Chicago Bears, but I think DeAndre Swift is easily a must-play this week. Finally, on my love list, and I'll give credit to Jeff Erickson for this one, it's Evan Engram. If you remember a little bit last year, Evan Engram became Evan Engram, the Scott Fishbowl darling, the tight end sleeper option for a lot of people, everyone's favorite love list tight end. Around this time when Christian Kirk got injured and missed the final weeks of the season, during that time period, Evan Engram had 41 receptions on 52 targets over a 5-game span for 357 yards and 3 touchdowns. This was not the disappointing first-round pick for the Giants, Evan Engram, but Jacksonville's star tight end. And now Christian Kirk done for the season. Brian Thomas banged up, Gabe Davis banged up against the Eagles this week too. I think Jacksonville's passing a lot, and Evan Engram is going to be a focal point. He's obviously a tight end start if you need to, but I think but I think you could even go one step further. Play your top 7 stud tight end and have Evan Engram as your flex play. That's how confident I am, at least in a full point PPR format, that Evan Engram produces the numbers you're expecting. Rest of season, this might be one of my favorite acquisitions along the same veins of Brock Bowers earlier this year, Trey McBride earlier this year. Evan Engram, with this Christian Kirk injury, is a top 5 tight end easily moving forward.